Bonjour! Welcome to this new episode of So French, the show about the twists and turns, intrigues and insights to all things French.
Every 2 weeks we select the best, most interesting and fascinating of French news stories, all brought to you from our studio here in the heart of Paris.
And this episode we say a special bonjour to all of you reached through World Radio Paris. That's the digital radio station in the Paris region. As of this week, So French is broadcasted every second Saturday on 5:30 p.m. and then rebroadcasted throughout the week.
We are happy, really
Very
happy
yes.
with this new collaboration, and I hope also that you will check out the rest of World Radio Paris programs on worldradioparis.fr.
And my name is Stefan Vries.
And my name is Sara Bertilsson.
And this week we're taking a closer look at the French left. They are pretty much, behind in the polls and very divided. Why don't they just kiss and make up to have a better chance in the upcoming elections?
And what happens when you bring together university students and young Syrian migrants? We have a special report from the American University in Paris.
We are also having two stories about sand. The first is about Paris-Plage, and the other one is a fairy tale involving an Arabic princess.
And, of course, Maud Descamps brings us a fresh French word of the day. But first, we are going overseas. We're going far, far away, all the way to South America, to France, actually.
French Guyana, la Guyane française.
Exactly. It's a French region, and it has, over the last week, actually made it to the news, which is a quite rare thing. And this all because of protests that actually began more than a week ago. But that they were amplified, you could say, over the weekend with a space shuttle a launch actually being cancelled, the airport being closed down, and then major rallies across the country or the coastal region in the beginning of the week. Just to begin, Stefan, what is French Guyana?
Well, it's one of those French overseas territories like Martinique or Mayotte. It is a real département, so it's really part of the country, and it's also the European Union. It is really, really huge, actually. It's the size of Portugal or Austria, but it only has 250,000 inhabitants. The country is mostly, or the region, I should say, is mostly jungle. It's situated in the north of the South American continent, bordering Suriname, a former Dutch colony, and also Brazil. And it's actually France's longest border with Brazil, longest land border. A lot of people don't even know that. Not the French people.
A lot of people in France, just to say, don't even know where French Guyana is.
No, exactly.
Basically.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you didn't know before, you as a listener, don't feel ashamed.
And it started out in the 16th and 17th century as a slave colony for France.
And then eventually, with the slavery being abolished, the region, became a part eventually of France. But to return to the events of this week, there has been major protests and even prompting a ministerial delegation to go there.
Yes, the Minister of the Overseas Territories was in French Guyana this week. On Thursday, she made a short statement, and this is what she said.
C'est à moi que revient l'honneur de dire au peuple guyanais toutes mes excuses au peuple guyanais pour
She presented her apologies, but for what exactly was not really clear. But at least her words brought some appeasement. So let's try to find out what's happening over there. And we are now in contact with Cayenne, the capital of French Guyana. That's the place where Déborah Neusy is a journalist of the regional newspaper France Guyane. Déborah, welcome to So French. Could you explain us briefly what's the current situation there?
Hello, Stefan. Yes. Tensions have been increasing for weeks in French Guyana. A collective citizen called the 500 Brothers fights peacefully against growing insecurity here. There have been other people, workers, indigenous people, students, farmers, trade unions, which have rejoined this group. Today, their demands have been centralized in a single collective called Pour la Guyane décollée, which means in the language Creole, it means that French Guyana takes off. It's like a metaphor about the rockets that fly from the European launch base in Kourou, and the region does not take off. That's why it doesn't develop, and the Guyanese people feel abandoned by France.
How is it to live there now? Because I was reading a quote by somebody from French Guyana who said, well, they're launching satellites here, but the normal people don't even have access to the internet. Is that correct?
No, that's not right. Well, as for me, I'm living perfectly well. The goal is not to annoy the population. It's just to provoke a reaction from the state, from France. So people here are quite peaceful. We don't have at night, of course, we have some troubles in the streets in the city center, but we don't really go out at night for the moment. So I really don't feel insecure, and the movement is very peaceful. Some access to the cities, to the main roads are blocked, but we don't really have problems. So,
what are the concrete demands of the local population, and how does the central French government in Paris react?
I think the first one should be about education, and they want to build new schools, new college for students. Another one is about healthcare, because hospitals here really need money to develop and to help people everywhere in Guyana, in French Guyana. And then another one would be about security. That's one of the main points. Another one is about indigenous people who want to be officially recognized by France. And then there are some other points about, of course, economics. Then they really want more money to develop the region, and about agriculture as well, fish industry, and so on. It's yeah.
So what's next? What's going to happen in the next couple of weeks or months?
I really don't know, and when we ask people here, they don't know as well. So streets are still blocked. The airport is still mainly blocked for the flights going to Paris and from Paris. For now, population is okay with that. So people are happy to be in that situation, because they want the situation to change. The two ministers are supposed to leave tomorrow night, so I really don't know how they are gonna unblock the situation before tomorrow night. Tomorrow night is Friday, 31. So we don't have any answers for now, and what we believe is that they are going to give some answers to make them happy, and then probably, unfortunately, the situation will go the same again.
Well, that doesn't sound really hopeful. Thank you very much, Déborah Neusy. We can follow your reports on the website of the regional daily franceguyane.fr. Thank you. It's time for politics. There are only 3 weeks left before the presidential election on April the 23rd. Let's have a look at the polls. It's a neck-and-neck race between Marine Le Pen and the independent centre candidate Emmanuel Macron. They're both at 25% in the first round.
Some are actually even giving Macron a slight lead ahead of Marine Le Pen.
Yes, indeed. And interestingly, the big winner of this week is the candidate of the extreme left, Jean-Luc Mélenchon. He is now in the 4th position with 15%, leaving the socialist candidate Benoît Hamon, who's at 10%, far behind. And speaking of the Socialist Party...
There's been things going on this week, to say the least. It's been a bit rough.
Yeah, pretty. Yeah, that's a euphemism. Actually, Manuel Valls, the former prime minister, said that he no longer supported Benoît Hamon, the candidate of the Socialist Party, and that he would vote for Emmanuel Macron, which is interesting because only 2 months ago, he mentioned that he would respect the agreement that any person winning the socialist primaries would support the winning candidate. This is what he said.
Est-ce que vous accepterez de soutenir sans réserve le vainqueur de cette primaire? Manuel Valls.
Même question. Je les ai signés. Vous avez laissé planer un doute à un moment donné? Non, j'ai laissé planer aucun doute. Parce que, attendons dimanche, mais moi je respecte les règles. D'ailleurs, j'ai toujours respecté les règles. Ça n'a pas toujours été le cas de Benoît au cours de ces 2 dernières années.
Yeah, there was Manuel Valls saying only 2 months ago that he always respects the rules and that, of course, he would support the winner of the primaries. Well, we're only 2 months later.
And now he said he won't. He's actually going then to vote for the centrist candidate, Emmanuel Macron, and his justification of this is that he's doing this for France and it's the only way to make sure that Marine Le Pen doesn't win the presidential election. But this, of course, has caused some, disturbance in the Socialist Party. Because, of course, the question, you do a primary election and one would expect the other candidates to actually rally behind the winner of the primary. It's the whole idea of a primary election. Yeah. We've seen it on the right, the conservative side, we see it in other countries. That is how it normally should go.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, if you promise to support the winner and then you don't, well, that's not you don't give a very good image of the politics.
To say to his defense, though, that he's not the only socialist candidate to support Emmanuel Macron.
That's absolutely true. There are many socialist candidates that are now behind Emmanuel Macron, but they didn't participate in the primary. But it's true. You're right. And let's have a look again at the polls of this week. As we see, Benoît Hamon is now at 10%, and Jean-Luc Mélenchon, also a left-wing candidate, extreme left, I would say, is at 15%. So together they would be at 25%.
If you add them up, which is not sure that would actually happen, but I mean, at least they would, because there are a lot of things that actually unite these two candidates. Yeah. They're both left.
So why don't they just join forces?
Well, there actually was a trial just this week where Hamon, the socialist candidate, said to Jean-Luc Mélenchon, well, why don't you join me and we will, get many more votes. And this suggestion was rejected by Mélenchon, who says that I am not negotiating. I am going my way or the highway, and more or less, that's what he said. Yeah. But I mean, it is interesting because, there are things that really unite these two candidates, but there are clearly things that actually separate them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. They have a very different view on Europe, for instance. Benoît Hamon is a former member of parliament, of the European Parliament. Jean-Luc Mélenchon still is, by the way. But Mélenchon is very critical of the European Union, whereas Benoît Hamon is more the traditional line of the Socialist Party in France, so in favor of more European cooperation. And he is less nationalistic. Jean-Luc Mélenchon is pretty, I would say, nationalistic. What other differences do you see?
No, but it's definitely the European question is a big. I'm not quite sure how they would be able to unite their two programs with that difference. But when it comes to their voters, I think that many are actually choosing between the two candidates, and those who are maybe more traditionally Socialist Party, of course, would go for Hamon, but their voters are very much the same, whilst the traditional Macron voter is far much more liberal in the political spectrum.
That's true. And we also have to mention the fact that only 3 weeks before the election now, there are still 40% of the French voters who don't know for whom they are going to vote. So many things can change. But there's a real dynamic. Emmanuel Macron is leading in the first round together with Marine Le Pen. And, according to the polls, he will probably defeat Marine Le Pen with a very large majority. So that's for the mess in French politics this week.
But just a quick word before we finish this is that what many are saying is that we're actually seeing the end of the Socialist Party in France. That what we've seen over the last week is the the falling apart of the Socialist Party, and that it will have to come up, and if it's gonna continue in another shape and with another program, because what we see with the division between Valls and Namur shows that there's clearly a divide that is unlikely, much to say, to actually be mended, and that the party can continue as it has before.
It is also a trend we've been seeing in other European countries. There's a huge struggle, for instance, within the Labour Party in the UK. And only 2 weeks ago in the Netherlands, the Dutch Labour Party suffered a heavy defeat. And here on the right, the French Conservatives, Les Républicains, they are struggling for their survival as well after all the revelations about their candidate, François Fillon. So the traditional parties are suffering, and it could even lead to their breakup. So far now for French politics. If you would like to stay informed about the campaign, just follow us on Twitter. Our account is @SoFrenchNews.
Vous écoutez So French.
You are listening to So French.
It is time for the word of the day.
Yes, with Maud Descamps. Bonjour Maud.
Hi, bonjour Stefan. Hi everyone.
So what's your So French word this episode, Maud?
Well, the word of the week is the word engagement. Engagement, which we can translate as, commitment in English. Why this choice? I think you can guess, Stefan?
Yeah, I guess it's, of course, a reference to Manuel Valls, who was very engaged.
He was really engaged. He was really engaged.
As well.
Exactly. Yeah. He chose to support, as you said just before, Emmanuel Macron, despite his promises to support Benoît Hamon, the leader of his own party, the Socialist Party. So what does engagement, what does commitment mean in this context? So, of course, I checked in my dictionary, the Littré dictionary, and there are a few, several meanings. An engagement was first the action of pawning something, which means when you're being linked to something or to somebody by a contract. So I think it's something you could apply to Benoît Hamon and Manuel Valls. And there is another meaning of the word engagement, commitment, which is related to the notion of honor. An engagement, commitment is something you have to honor, like a religious commitment, for instance. Well, I won't do any comment on this meaning for Manuel Valls. And there is one more way we could use the word engagement. It's something I discovered during the research. It's actually a technical term used in fencing. Actually, l'engagement, it's, the moment at the beginning of the game. No, not when you attack. It's actually when the two opponents crosses the blades at the beginning, so they could actually feel the strength or the weakness of the opponent.
Okay, that's interesting.
And well, I think maybe, Stefan, the engagement of Manuel Valls wasn't in the way we thought it was. Maybe it was in a fencing acceptance, and maybe he actually felt the weakness of his candidate, Benoît Hamon.
Well, it's not a very chivalrous way of fencing or engagement by Manuel Valls. Thank you very much, Maud, for the French word.
Thank you.
Put on your bikini, monokini, swim trunks and sunglasses because we are going to the beach. There are actually 2 stories this week involving sand. The first one has to do with no one less than Donald Trump, while the other one sounds more like a fairy tale. Let's start in Paris. Everybody knows, of course, the popular annual summer event we have here, Paris Plage, or Paris Beach.
Yes, it's been happening for the last more than a decade. I think it was 10-year anniversary last year. Or the year before.
It's a long time already. The beach for the people who are not able to leave Paris and they have to stay in the city.
Yeah, so it's a side was the quay next to the Seine in the central Paris has actually been closed off, filled with sand, chairs, ice cream stands. You name it.
Yeah, always in the month of August. Pretty nice. And every year it gets bigger and bigger because it's a real success. But this year there will be something new. Or actually there won't be something.
Well, it's the sand.
Yeah, it's the sand.
Well, we actually don't know if the sand will be there or not. But what we do know is the company that used to provide the sand for Paris Plage is no longer providing the sand because this was Lafarge, a French company. And this year, the Paris mayor, Anne Hidalgo, has decided that the company is no longer welcome to provide sand to Paris Plage. And this because
Lafarge is hoping that it will get a part of the huge project, as Donald Trump would say, of building the wall along the US-Mexico border. And this was just too much for the French mayor, for the Paris mayor, Anne Hidalgo. Her deputy said, we will do without their services because we don't like the nefarious project. So it was a political...
But Lafarge has been in other, it's been quite recently, it was also unveiled that they had been collaborating and even paying the Islamic State group to have access to cross the border with Syria.
Yeah.
And so it's a company that their defense is that they are not doing politics. But when it comes to the border wall in Mexico, they say that they're not doing politics. They're just a company. They want to make money and they don't, make any difference to who they make money with, except for the fact with the Islamic State group, of course, that's another story because that is illegal. But
a very controversial company, too controversial now for the city of Paris, and it's a big deal. Paris uses over 3,000 tons of sand to make a temporary beach on the banks of the Seine, and now there probably won't be any sand. At least there won't be sand of Lafarge. And what's interesting is that France has many very large-scale building companies. And when Donald Trump was elected, the stock exchange or the stock rates of all those companies went up immediately, like Lafarge, but also Bouygues and other big companies. So actually, France is doing pretty well thanks to President Donald Trump, but the city of Paris don't want to earn any money with him, and I think that's setting a very good example.
Now, Stefan, Hidalgo was not the only one who got rid of sand this week. A princess from Dubai has actually given €1 million to a small village in the east of France because she wants her kids not to play on the sand on the local beach.
Yeah, it's actually a very a cute story this week, like a fairy tale, but it's a real story. A princess from Dubai, so basically the desert, that's the reason why she doesn't like sand, likes to visit this very small town of Aix-Sevenex. I've never heard of it, but it's a beautiful little town on the...
It has a couple of thousand of inhabitants.
Yeah, very small town. On the lake Lac Le Mans, or the Lake of Geneva, and she spends her holidays there, and she gave $1 million to the small community to create a play area for their kids. There is already a play area, but that's on the local beach, so there's sand. Now she wants a play area on a grassland, and so she gave $1 million just to make a play area.
There's also the fact she's saying that she wants her daughter to play with the local kids in the area, and apparently there was this area that was supposed to be fitted with as a playground, but it's a small town. They didn't really have the means to do it. But then the Sand millions came in handy.
Yeah, the Sandman. And her project also will include a cultural project because the Princess Latifa bint Maktoum, as she's called, she's really into art. She has a gallery in Dubai. She also is a photographer. She paints. So a very artistic princess and also a very rich one. The people in the local village of X7X were very happy with the gift, and they said they will build the playground that the princess, wants. Yeah, very nice.
Now, to another topic, we can say, actually the students of the American University here in Paris, they are working on an art project with Syrian migrants. And Maud Descamps went to one of their workshops this week.
Yes, and it is in the very heart of Paris, in the American University, that everyone met for a last painting session. The project is called the Human Element Project, where students work with Syrians living here in France to tell their stories, their background and their journey to France through paintings. Jonathan is the art teacher leading the project.
The aim of the project is to create an exhibition that has the form of the periodic table. And instead of putting up the letters and the atomic numbers of the different elements, the idea is to have paintings by the people who participate in this project with their names and their testimony. And the idea is that in the periodic table, the element that is missing is the human element. So everybody brings the human element to this new type of periodic table.
Around 30 Syrians participated to this last session. Mohammed is one of them. He used to live in the south of Syria before living with his family to Zaatari camp at the Jordan border, where more than 80,000 refugees live. Today he studies at the American University, and even if he's been through a lot, hearing the stories of other Syrians is still really hard for him.
For me, I am Syrian, it's very difficult when I see the story. It's very hard for me, but it's good for people here because so many people, they don't know the situation in Syria, what is the life. But it's good. Maybe we'll show the people how is the situation in Syria, what is going on.
The next step for the project is an exhibition in May here at the American University in Paris. There will also be a book that will gather all the testimonies and the paintings. The money generated by the sales will go into a Syrian association.
And that was Maud Descamps at the American University here in Paris. And on that note, we're going to leave this edition. We hope you have enjoyed it. Please follow us on Twitter. It's at SoFrenchNews. And if you have any questions or suggestions, send us an email. Our address is sofrench@sofrench.news.
And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast in iTunes or in SoundCloud. You can also find us on the TuneIn radio application. We also have a playlist with hip French music on Spotify. Just look for So French. We'll be back in 2 weeks with a new episode of So French, online and on air on World Radio Paris. We hope you'll join us then. Thanks for listening.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.